What's the value of a preseason poll? To set expectations. Not always the correct expectations, but some form of expectations. It's Arizona State, it's Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. So Iowa State was a team who some of us saw as, yeah, they can win the Big 12. Don't know if they will, but they could. One of these teams is going to the playoff. One of these teams, I'm not a huge 12-team playoff guy. Absolute, unquestioned positive is that one of Tempe, Arizona, or Ames, Iowa, are going to be represented in the college football playoff. How are they going to fare once they get there? I don't know. I don't know who they're going to play just yet, but we don't need to think about such things because the conference championship game is still to be had. And Arizona State being there is pretty incredible. Kenny Dillingham has taken that program from dormant to thriving as well as it ever has. They appeared in one, maybe two Pac-12 championship games. I think it was two. They didn't win either one of them. If they go out in his second season, a year after they were 3-9, when they dealt with the Jaden Rashada situation off the field and the sanctions and everything like that they had to go through, this guy has got real Coach of the Year capability written all over him. I think he's already in the running. I think he's got to be up there. Yeah, you have to put Deion Sanders in that conversation. Boy, Curt Cignetti at Indiana is hard to overlook, isn't he? But Kenny Dillingham, if he wins a conference championship, this wasn't supposed to happen. Yeah, picking them last was always a ridiculous thing by the Big 12 media. It was all, but for me, if I did a Big 12 media preseason poll, if they'd given me a vote for that, I don't think I would have picked him in the top 10. I wouldn't have picked him 16th. Probably in the 11 to 12 range. This is an astonishingly successful season for Kenny Dillingham and company. And it's a testament to a couple of things. First of all, don't ever tell me that someone is crazy for taking a particular Power 4 job. If you are a great coach, if you are really as good as you think you are in your head, you can win anywhere. Tempe, Arizona, sanctions it's been a sleeping giant forever. Kenny Dillingham has woken it up. It looks like a job. I don't know what they're going to do in the offseason recruiting. I'm excited to find out. Arizona State fans should be excited to find out. Anytime a coach takes a job, why would he go over there? Why would he take this job? Because if you have these sorts of stories, you're not just fulfilling your own life, you're fulfilling the lives of thousands and thousands of people in a place that, for Kenny Dillingham, he holds really dear. But what has Curt Cignetti done to Indiana? Kirk Herbstreit was talking about, I think it was Kirk Herbstreit, was talking about how Curt Cignetti, as much as anything, had to go to Bloomington, and he had to shock the fan base to get into it. He had to say, hey, you can be good. Screw all these other guys. They suck. That was as much a shot to get attention to the program as it was an energy to permeate throughout the fan base to say, hey, we could do this. We can absolutely do it. So you've got a job, like the UCF job is now open. Gus Malzahn is going to be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. You may look at UCF and say, it's a tough job. Boy, it's difficult. Not if you're the right guy. Not if you have an idea of what you are doing. So any job can be a good job or at least a good enough job because this turnaround is shockingly good. Shockingly good. Conclusion number 2 from Arizona State. There is more than one way to build a championship program. Arizona State got hit in the transfer portal. Remember, Jaden Rashada left. Outsiders might have saying, oh boy, couldn't keep him around. Well, Sam Leavitt was better. He beat him out in fall camp. And they said, yeah, if you want to hit in spring camp, you want to hit the transfer portal, go for it. Kenny Dillingham didn't hold any ill will. Kenny Dillingham publicly stated, this is a great guy. Whoever gets him in the transfer portal is getting an outstanding young man. Kenny Dillingham's a stand-up sort of guy. He will sink his teeth in, he will be 10 toes down, and he will say, I am all in right here, right now. But they haven't gone and revolutionized their roster in the portal. They're doing it with good old-fashioned coaching. I know this is a novel concept, perhaps. Colorado brought in a bunch of transfers. They got it going to a championship level in their second year. Indiana brought in a bunch of transfers. Conference championship contender in year 1. Kenny Dillingham? They've brought in guys. They've worked the portal. They have certainly made a number of key moves. But they have focused on development and player retention. Cam Scatterbo, who Nick Saban described as his favorite player in college football. He's not the only one who would say that, by the way. Cameron Scadaboo began his career at Sacramento State. That's an FCS program and a darn good one. A darn good one. He goes to Arizona State. They go 3-9, but he impresses people. I don't have firsthand knowledge or second or even third-hand knowledge of what transpired in the offseason. I would bet every dollar that I have made this year that he had offers to go elsewhere. But do you know who convinced him to stay? Kenny Dillingham and company. And what is he? Oh, that's right. At the center of a cultural revolution in Tempe to get them to the conference championship game. You could say, well, Joel Klatt said the other day on Colin Cowherd's show, Deion Sanders has revolutionized college football. Well, on the one hand, yes, that is true. And that is one way to build a program and get a turnaround moving in the right direction. On the other hand, look at what Kenny Dillingham's doing at Arizona State. That's not a revolutionary concept. It's kind of old school, but he's got a new school flair to it. And I think it's a great thing to see. So next question I have, Iowa State plays well. They beat Kansas State. They're meeting Arizona State. This is going to be a great football game. Just a great football game. Are we sure the Big 12 is locked into just the one playoff spot? Are we 110% certain there is no possible way? Probably. And you know what? I think it stinks at some level because BYU, who knocked off Houston, Colorado almost snuck into the Big 12 championship game, but BYU said, no, we want to have a 10-win season. That still matters, and you never know. I don't know what happens at 10-2. You probably don't get a huge bump as the number 19 team in the country beating an unranked and under 500 Houston team. At least I wouldn't think so. I mean, Tulane lost ahead of you. You have all these other 9-3 teams, but the perception of the Big 12 and the perception of the ACC is still weaker in the SEC. And I think some of that's valid. I just don't think the gap should be viewed anywhere near as large as it once was. But for the Big 12 to be a one-bid league, which I remember saying all the way back in January, and took a lot of flack for that. Here we are, Big 12, going to be a one-bid league. Iowa State beating Kansas State, maybe it propels them. It's a top 25 win, but are they going to jump 5 spots? No, I suspect not. The mission for the Big 12 is to prevent this from happening again in the future, to not have a world in which you don't have a bunch of 10-2 teams, 2-3 lost teams, but to have a world where the college football community looks at a 10-2 BYU and they get more playoff consideration than they are about to receive. It takes a lot of work. It might take years before you get there, but it'll be worth it for the Big 12 in the long run. That's going to take you're going to have to clear a lot of mental hurdles for people, but it can be done. I think we're about to see it. The ACC took a major step forward this year. I think we're absolutely going to see that when the final college football playoff rankings come out. Big 12 is a one-bid league. ACC could get up to 3. If Clemson wins the ACC championship, I think that's a 3-bid league. Without it, I think that's a 2-bid league. And good for the ACC. Big 12 didn't quite have that sort of season this year. Doesn't mean they can't in the future. And I think that'll matter eventually. Not immediately, not next year, maybe not even the year after, but eventually. I think those chickens can come home to roost in a positive way.